I was 24 when my parents told me it was time to pack my things and leave. You're just taking up space here, Ethan, my father said. His voice was flat and decisive, as if he had practiced that sentence for weeks. My mother didn't look at me. She stirred her coffee and muttered something about how I needed to learn responsibility. The irony barely registered anymore. Not when my older sister, Madison, was sitting at the kitchen table, smiling like she'd just won a lifetime award. In a way, she had. My parents had just given her $1 million to launch her dream business. $1 million, transferred directly from my father's account to hers. He even printed the confirmation page and held it like proof of success. "We believe in you, Maddie," he said proudly. "This will finally put our family name on the map." She laughed, flipped her hair, and kissed his cheek, perfectly playing the role of the golden child she'd always been. I stood near the door with a half-packed duffel bag, the room filled with the smell of fresh espresso and favoritism. I had seen this pattern for years. Madison was the prodigy, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. I was the quiet one, the drifter, the one who supposedly lacked direction. She failed out of college twice before deciding she was an entrepreneur, and somehow that made her visionary. I dropped out once to help cover the mortgage when I'd lost his job, and that labeled me as lazy. She totaled 2 cars before turning 22, and my dad replaced both of them. I worked part-time delivering groceries and saved enough to buy an old Honda Civic. My mother still questioned whether that was a smart decision. So when the $1 million announcement came, I didn't feel angry. I felt exhausted. I had spent years chasing approval that never arrived. Years listening to them brag about Madison's newest idea while telling me to be quiet whenever I tried to talk about something I was proud of. "What about me?" I asked softly that morning. "Am I just supposed to leave?" My father didn't hesitate. "You're 24. It's time to grow up. Madison is taking real risks for her future. What are you doing?" "Working," I said. "Saving." He laughed briefly. "Saving what, pennies? You don't build a life on scraps." My mother added, "You could learn a lot from your sister. She's not afraid to think big." I wanted to respond, but I didn't. Every attempt in the past had turned into a lecture about gratitude or attitude, so I zipped my bag and nodded. "All right," I said. "I'll figure it out." I left that day with $362 in my bank account, a Civic that struggled to shift gears, and no clear plan. But I also left with something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. No more pretending. No more asking for respect. Just me, the road, and the question of who I could become without being labeled a disappointment. The first nights were difficult. I slept in my car near the beach because it was quiet and free. The sound of the waves helped me think. I showered at a gym using a 7-day trial and lived off dollar menu food. Even then, I felt strangely free. I worked night shifts loading trucks at a warehouse. Every morning, I sat in my car watching the sunrise, sketching ideas in a notebook. I had always been good with computers. As a kid, I fixed laptops for neighbors and built simple websites for small businesses. It had been a hobby, but now it felt like a foundation. I started freelancing online, taking any tech work I could find, debugging code, building landing pages, setting up basic online stores. The money was minimal at first, but the client list slowly grew. At the same time, Madison's business was everywhere. She opened a luxury boutique downtown, selling expensive candles and calling them art. My parents visited weekly, telling everyone their daughter was a CEO. She even appeared on local news, talking about empowerment through fragrance. I watched the segment from the break room while eating a microwaved burrito. My coworker Tony glanced at the TV. "That your sister?" "Yeah," I said. "She's got that millionaire smile," he joked. "Yeah," I replied quietly. I told myself I wasn't jealous. But some nights, lying in the back of my car, I wondered if they were right. Maybe I was the failure. Maybe some people were born with advantages while others had to fight for every step forward. Then I remembered my father saying, "You're wasting space." Something hardened inside me. If they thought I was disposable, I would build something undeniable. I focused completely. I saved aggressively, learned new skills, and began developing a software platform to help small businesses manage inventory. It started as a side project. Then a few clients tested it. They told others. Within a year, I had 20 users, then 50, then 100. I wasn't wealthy, but I was moving forward. Madison's boutique became more extravagant. Influencers, champagne events, motivational quotes online. My mom sent me every article and photo. "You should be proud of your sister," she'd text. I never responded. One night, my dad left a voicemail. "Ethan, we heard you're doing some tech work. That's good. Madison's expanding and needs help with her website. It would be good experience for you. Family helps family." I stared at my phone for a long time. Help her. The sister who hadn't checked on me once. The parents who removed me like an inconvenience. I didn't call back. But I knew something had changed. I had momentum. A few months later, my platform landed a major retail client with a six-figure contract. I quit the warehouse, rented a small apartment, and officially registered my company. That's when the calls started again. Casual at first. Curious. Then concerned. One afternoon, my mom called. "Madison's been struggling," she said gently. "Sales are slowing. Maybe you could help her. You're doing well now." That was the first crack in the image they'd built. I didn't yet know how bad things would get, or how far they'd go to pull me back in, or that it wouldn't be about money in the end. It would be about control, pride, and something they never expected me to have. Power. And that moment was still ahead. I just hadn't seen it coming yet. Changes are minimal and controlled. They wanted to play games with guilt and pressure. Fine. I'd play too. But this time, I wouldn't be the quiet one at the table, pretending not to notice the knives aimed in my direction. This time, I would make sure they understood exactly who they were dealing with. The breakdown started quietly. Like a slow leak no one notices until the floor gives way. For weeks, I tried to ignore the warning signs. Late-night messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Vague, urgent calls from my parents. A constant feeling that something was happening behind the scenes. I didn't want to care. I was busy. My company had just secured another major partnership. I'd hired more staff. For once, my life felt stable. Then one morning, my bank sent me an alert. A large transfer, $15,000, had been flagged for review. My stomach dropped. I hadn't moved any money that week. I logged in immediately and froze. There was a pending transaction from one of my business accounts, routed to an unfamiliar entity under my sister's name. I called the bank right away. "That transfer isn't authorized," I said. "I didn't approve it." The representative placed me on hold, then returned sounding confused. "Sir, the request came through a joint authorization. A linked account with matching family credentials approved it." Family credentials? "Yes, sir. The account is connected to your parents' banking profile." My chest tightened. That didn't make sense. I hadn't linked any accounts to my family since I left home years ago. Then I remembered. When I was younger, my father had insisted on helping me manage my savings. He opened a joint family account, claiming it was for emergencies. I'd forgotten it existed. Apparently, he hadn't. I froze the transaction immediately and changed every password I could think of. When I checked my email, I saw multiple failed login attempts from unknown devices. My father's old email address was still listed as a recovery contact. My hands shook as I called him. He answered on the third ring, calm as ever. "Ethan, you don't need to be so dramatic." "What did you do?" I asked. "Why is there a transfer from my company account to Madison?" He sighed. "We needed to move some money temporarily. Her business was about to lose its lease. We'll pay it back." I almost laughed. "You took money from my company without asking." "Don't exaggerate," he snapped. "It's all family money. We've helped you plenty over the years." "You kicked me out," I said. "That was for your own good," he replied sharply. "You're successful because we pushed you. You owe this family." I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, "You didn't give me anything. You gave her everything." "Don't talk about your sister like that," he barked. "She's trying. She's had a hard year." "So you stole from me." I borrowed, he corrected quickly. "You won't even feel it missing. You're doing well now. Don't act like this is a tragedy." "You could have asked." He laughed. "If I asked, you'd say no." Then he hung up. That was when something inside me shifted. Not anger, but something deeper. I'd always known Madison was favored, but I hadn't realized how far they were willing to go. This wasn't favoritism anymore. It was betrayal. I sat at my desk for nearly an hour, staring at the frozen transaction. The problem wasn't the money. It was the entitlement. The belief that my success belonged to them. That they could reach into my life whenever they wanted just because we shared a last name. That evening, I drove to their house, the same one I'd been thrown out of 5 years earlier. The drive felt longer than I remembered. Madison's brand new SUV sat in the driveway, shining under the porch light. My mom opened the door before I knocked. "Ethan," she said sweetly, "you look tired. Working too hard?" "Where's Dad?" I asked. She hesitated. "In the living room, but maybe we can just—" "I'm not here to chat." Her smile faltered as I walked past her. Dad sat watching TV. Madison was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She smirked when she saw me. Well, she said. "The prodigal son." "Did you do it?" I asked. "Do what?" "Authorize a transfer from my business account." Her expression changed. She glanced at Dad. "Relax. It was temporary." "You did it," I said. "Dad said it would be fine," she replied. "I needed it for payroll. You make 6 figures. What's 50 grand to you?" I couldn't speak for a moment. That money wasn't just mine. It supported my employees and my company. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You think your startup is some empire? You wouldn't even have it without Dad's connections." I turned to him. "You gave her access to my account." "It's family," he said. "Stop being selfish." "I froze the account," I said calmly, "and I filed a fraud report." The room went silent. "You what?" Mom gasped. "I filed a fraud report." Dad stood, furious. "Do you realize what you've done? You could destroy your sister's business." "Good," I said. "Maybe she'll finally face consequences." Mom's voice cracked. "You're tearing this family apart." "You already did," I said. Madison stood suddenly, furious. "You think you're better than us now?" "No," I said. "I think I proved you don't need $1 million handout to build something real." She threw a glass across the room. It shattered near the wall. I didn't move. "That's the difference," I said quietly. "You destroy things when you don't get your way. I build." Then I left. That night, I sat awake in my apartment, thinking about everything that led there. The neglect, the insults framed as advice, the way they convinced me I was nothing unless I became her. That was the night I stopped being their scapegoat. The next morning, the bank called. The fraud report froze all linked family accounts, my parents' mortgage, credit cards, everything. My phone exploded with calls and voicemails. I didn't answer. Later, my mom texted, "This has gone too far. Your father is furious. Madison can't pay her employees. Call me." Then another message followed. "If you don't fix this, you're no longer welcome in this house." I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I felt peace. It didn't last. A few days later, a letter arrived from a law firm. My parents' attorney claimed I had illegally restricted joint funds and demanded restitution. They threatened legal action. It was absurd, but revealing. They didn't just want money, they wanted control. That's when I understood the truth. This was no longer about Madison's business. It was about power. They couldn't stand that I'd built something without them. And by crossing that line, by stealing from me, they'd triggered something they couldn't undo. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to fight back. And this time, the next move was mine. Becoming dramatic. She removed her sunglasses, revealing tired eyes, red, swollen, and worn down. "I lost everything," she said quietly. "The house, the car, my savings. The bank took what little was left. I'm staying with Mom and Dad now." I nodded slowly. She hesitated before continuing. "I need help," she said. "Just a little. Not money, guidance. You're good at business. I was hoping we could partner on something new." I laughed before I could stop myself. "Not intentionally. It just happened. You forged my name," I said. "You almost got me investigated for fraud, and now you want to start a business with me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please, Ethan. I'm not asking for a handout. I just need a chance." Dad leaned forward. "She's learned her lesson, son. We all have. This family's been through enough. Show some compassion." I looked at him, that familiar disbelief returning. He still didn't understand. None of them did. Mom tried to soften things. "Your sister's lost so much. You're in a position to help her rebuild. Think of it as healing the family." I looked at Madison. "You still think life is about who you can use next, don't you?" Her expression hardened instantly. The tears vanished. "That's not fair." "It is," I said. "You didn't come here for forgiveness. You came because you need something." Silence filled the room. That was when it became clear. They weren't here for reconciliation or guilt. They were here because they needed me again. They'd rehearsed this conversation the entire drive down the coast. What they didn't know, what none of them could have predicted, was that over the past few months, I'd built far more than they imagined. After Madison's fraud case, my company gained attention from several investors who respected how I handled it. One of them, a seasoned venture capitalist named Harold Evans, became a mentor. He helped me restructure the company, subsidiaries, asset protection, long-term planning. He taught me how to move quietly and protect what I'd built. Through a business partnership, I'd also acquired a stake in a commercial real estate group. Among its holdings were several high-value retail properties along the coast, including the building that once housed Madison's boutique. It wasn't planned. It came as part of a larger acquisition. But once I realized it, the irony wasn't lost on me. Sitting there, watching her ask for help again, something clicked. "You said you've been working on an idea," I said. Her face lit up. "Yes, another boutique, but more sustainable this time. Eco-friendly luxury goods, organic fabrics, handcrafted candles, low waste. It's very current." I nodded as if considering it. "Sounds interesting. Where would you set it up?" She shrugged. "Maybe my old location. It's still empty, right?" I tilted my head. "You sure about that?" Her expression faltered. "Why?" "Because I bought that building 3 months ago." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. My parents exchanged glances. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "Of course you didn't," I replied. "You never track what doesn't belong to you." Dad leaned forward. "What are you saying, Ethan?" "I'm saying," I said calmly, "if you want to open a business there, you'll need to lease it through my company, and the rent isn't what it used to be." Madison's jaw tightened. "That's cruel." "No," I said. "That's business." Mom's voice shook. "You can't do this to your sister." "I can," I replied, "and I already have." The silence that followed was complete. Madison stood abruptly. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No," I said, standing to meet her. "I think it makes me free." She stared at me, then stormed out. Dad followed, muttering about ungrateful children. Mom stayed behind for a moment, tears in her eyes. "You've changed," she whispered. "You're right," I said. When the door closed, I sat down and exhaled, but it wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, word spread that Madison was trying to open a new business, but no one would lease to her. Her fraud case had circulated quietly among property owners. Her reputation was finished. Then I received an email from her. "No one will rent to me." Every landlord says the same thing. "I can't even open a bank account. Please stop." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. They had spent years controlling me, dismissing me, taking from me. And without lifting a finger, I'd taken back the one thing they could never reclaim, their illusion of power. I focused on work. My company expanded into 3 countries. My investments grew. My reputation solidified. I spoke at a conference on resilience, something that once would have mattered to my father. Then one afternoon, I received another letter. This one wasn't a threat. My parents were selling their home and wanted me to consider buying it to keep it in the family. I laughed. I called my lawyer. "Buy it," I said, "all cash." 2 weeks later, the deed was in my name. I didn't move in. I had it cleaned, appraised, and listed again. It wasn't revenge. It was closure. When my parents found out, they reached out through Madison. She arrived at my villa one evening, shaking. "They're losing everything," she said. "They can't afford rent. They're scared." I looked at her. "What do you want me to do?" She didn't know. The next day, I stood in front of the house I grew up in, except this time, it was mine. It looked smaller, worn, empty. Inside, my parents looked older. The certainty was gone. What remained was exhaustion. "I already bought the house," I said calmly. The silence was heavy. "So what now?" Dad asked. "You move out," I said. 30 days. Mom cried. Dad said nothing. As I walked out, I said one last thing. "You taught me that family meant loyalty. What you really meant was obedience. I spent years trying to earn your approval. I don't need it anymore." Outside, the sun was setting. Madison followed me. "You could forgive us," she said. I looked at her. "You don't want forgiveness. You want control back." I got into my car and drove away. Weeks later, the house sold for nearly double its value. I donated every dollar to a scholarship fund for kids who grew up being told they'd never succeed. Standing on my balcony months later, watching the ocean stretch endlessly ahead, I felt no anger, no sadness, only freedom. I closed the doors behind me, and I never looked back.